Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to listen to me very carefully. A truly strong mind does not demand attention, nor does it announce itself with noise and arrogance. Its presence is like gravity. You do not see it, but you feel it. People sense something different, something they cannot name, yet it unsettles them in ways they do not expect. And this is the beauty of inner strength. It cannot be faked, it cannot be borrowed, and it cannot be taken away from you once it is forged. The power of inner strength comes not from how loudly you speak or how forcefully you argue, but from the depth of your stillness, the clarity of your thought, and the unshakable foundation of your being. Most people live on the surface of their own minds. They chase approval, run from fear, and let the smallest winds move them. Their sense of self is fragile, easily influenced by words, by gossip, by fleeting opinions. But when you begin to build a mind that draws its power from within, you no longer bend so easily. You stop being tossed around by circumstances. You stop reacting to every insult or distraction. Instead, you begin to see life like a vast ocean, and you realize that while the surface is turbulent, the depths remain calm. Your strength lies in living in those depths. That inner stillness becomes your fortress, your anchor, and people who only know turbulence cannot understand it. That is why they fear it. Power of inner strength is not about aggression or domination. It is about control. When you master your mind, you master the energy that everyone else leaks carelessly. Anger, jealousy, insecurity. These emotions consume people because they cannot manage them. But a strong mind transforms them into fuel. Anger becomes focus. Pain becomes growth. Loneliness becomes self-discovery. This transformation creates an aura around you, a sense of unshakable composure. When people see that you cannot be provoked, manipulated, or broken by circumstances that would crush others, they feel uneasy. It is as if they are staring at a mountain, silent, immovable, impossible to conquer. Think about the difference between a candle and the sun. A candle flickers with the slightest breath of wind, and that is how the majority live. The smallest problem extinguishes their peace, but the sun burns with a power that no wind can put out, and that is the quality of a strong mind. It is not reactive, it is radiant. It shines by its very nature without asking permission, without needing recognition. This is why inner strength is more frightening than outward aggression, because it cannot be controlled and it cannot be explained. People do not know how to argue with silence, how to compete with calmness, or how to disarm someone who does not need anything from them. But to build such a mind requires struggle. It does not come from comfort, nor does it come from endless seeking of pleasure. It comes from discipline, from choosing to face the discomfort that others run from. When you sit with your pain instead of escaping it, when you confront your fears instead of hiding from them, when you discipline your impulses instead of being enslaved by them, you forge strength. Each trial becomes a weight that strengthens your mental muscles. Slowly, you discover that you are no longer as easily shaken. The world may still throw storms at you, but you no longer collapse. You endure, you rise, and eventually you radiate an energy that others feel but cannot touch. People often misunderstand such strength. They mistake your calmness for arrogance. They interpret your silence as hostility. They project their insecurities onto you because they cannot fathom how someone could be so unmoved, so self-contained. And in truth, their fear is not of you, it is of what you represent. You are a mirror that shows them their own weakness, their own lack of control. When they cannot rattle you, they feel powerless. When their words do not trigger you, they feel exposed. And that is the true measure of inner strength. You do not even need to fight, because your very presence disarms. The power of inner strength also changes how you view life. Instead of reacting impulsively, you begin to respond deliberately. You stop wasting energy on meaningless conflicts. You no longer seek to prove yourself to anyone, because your value is no longer dependent on external approval. You realize that the mind, once tamed, is the most powerful tool you will ever possess. It can either enslave you or liberate you. And when you choose liberation, when you choose mastery, you become someone others cannot easily understand. That mystery, that depth, is what unsettles them. They may respect you, or they may resent you, but they will not ignore you. To build a mind so strong that it scares people is not to create fear in others for its own sake. It is to cultivate a presence that cannot be manipulated, a mind that cannot be broken, and a spirit that cannot be subdued. It is to embody the kind of strength that forces others to question themselves, to confront their own fragility. And whether they admit it or not, deep down, they will know you are someone different, someone who has built power not on the surface of life, but at its very core. And in a world built on illusions and noise, that kind of silent power is the rarest and the most terrifying of all. Fear and respect often wear similar masks, but their roots are entirely different. When you build a mind so strong it unsettles others, you will notice that some people respond with fear while others respond with respect. The distinction lies not in what you do, but in how they perceive you. A disciplined, unshakable mind is something most people have never encountered. They are accustomed to minds that break under pressure, that react to every insult, that beg for validation. When they meet someone who is unmoved by their games, they do not know how to interpret it. To some, it feels threatening because it strips away their illusions of control. To others, it feels inspiring because it reveals a strength they secretly wish to embody. Fear arises when people cannot predict you. Human beings feel safe when they can calculate how someone will react. They rely on patterns. Say this, and the person gets angry. Do that, and they get flustered. But when your mind no longer dances to their strings, you disrupt the pattern. You do not rise to their bait. You do not chase after their approval. You do not collapse under their criticism. This unpredictability unsettles them. They fear you not because you are dangerous, but because you are free. You cannot be controlled by their opinions, and that freedom is terrifying to those who rely on manipulation as a form of power. Respect, however, arises from recognition. It comes when people look at you and see the fruits of your inner discipline. They see how you endure when others crumble, how you remain calm in storms, how you think with clarity when everyone else is drowning in noise. Respect is not demanded, it is earned through consistency. A strong mind commands it without asking, simply because it demonstrates qualities that others instinctively admire. And here lies the paradox. The very traits that inspire respect in some will inspire fear in others. The difference is not in you, but in them. Those who fear you often carry insecurity within themselves. Your strength highlights their weakness. Your clarity exposes their confusion. Your self-control reveals their lack of it. And so instead of learning from you, they resent you. They see in you a mirror of what they are not yet ready to face. But those who respect you are different. They may also feel that same mirror, but instead of turning away from it, they are humbled by it. They admire it. They wish to grow toward it. They see your mind as a model, as proof that discipline and clarity are possible. Respect, then, is simply fear that has been transformed into admiration by courage. Consider the way people respond to silence. Most cannot bear it. They fill every gap with chatter, with noise, with distractions. When you carry silence with ease, when your words are measured and rare, it unsettles them. Some will fear that silence because they feel exposed in it. Others will respect it because they know it comes from control. In the same way, your strong mind becomes a mirror of their relationship with themselves. If they are insecure, they will fear you. If they are self-aware, they will respect you. This is why building a strong mind is not about forcing others to bow before you. It is about creating a state of being where you no longer depend on their reactions. Fear and respect are simply echoes of how others perceive your strength, not definitions of your strength itself. Whether they fear you or respect you, you remain unmoved. Your power does not increase when they admire you, nor does it decrease when they fear you. It simply is, as steady as a mountain, as unbothered by storms as the ocean depths. The key is to understand that fear and respect both confirm one truth. You have stepped outside the ordinary. You no longer fit neatly into their expectations. You are not controlled by impulses, nor are you enslaved by validation. And when you break away from the ordinary, you will inevitably stir strong reactions. Some will back away in unease. Some will lean in with reverence. Both are natural. Both are signs that you have tapped into a kind of inner strength that does not just exist quietly, but radiates into the world. But do not make the mistake of chasing fear or chasing respect. If you aim to make people fear you, you have already lost, for your strength has become dependent on their reaction. If you live only to be respected, you will fall into the same trap, molding yourself to win admiration. The true strength lies in neither. It lies in building a mind that is complete in itself, needing nothing, craving nothing, unshaken by either praise or blame. That is when your presence alone will draw reactions you did not even seek. Some will fear. Some will fear. Some will respect. But you will remain free, and that freedom is the essence of a mind that unsettles the world. In the end, fear and respect are just two faces of the same coin. Both reveal that others have recognized something uncommon in you. Whether they shrink from it or look up to it is their burden, not yours. What matters is that you have cultivated a mind that cannot be moved, a strength that shines quietly, and a presence that speaks without words. That is the true power. To embody a mind so strong that people, whether in fear or in awe, cannot help but feel it. Detachment from opinions is one of the greatest signs of a strong mind. Most people live as prisoners to what others think of them. Their sense of identity is not their own. It is borrowed, fragile, and constantly shifting depending on the approval or disapproval of those around them. When someone praises them, they rise. When someone criticizes them, they collapse. They live like leaves carried by the wind, never rooted, never stable. But when you build a mind so strong that you detach from this endless cycle, you step into a rare kind of freedom, one that others struggle to understand. A weak mind is addicted to validation. It constantly asks, do they like me? Do they agree with me? Do they see me as worthy? It adjusts itself like a chameleon, blending in just to be accepted, even if that means betraying its own truth. But a strong mind understands that the opinions of others are not a reflection of reality. They are reflections of other people's fears, biases, and limitations. To live by them is to let strangers dictate your worth. And so, the one who develops inner strength learns to observe opinions without being captured by them. Praise does not inflate the ego, and criticism does not shatter the spirit. Both are seen for what they are, noise. When you detach from opinions, people will notice. At first, they will not know how to interpret it. They are used to controlling others with approval and rejection, with gossip and silence. But when you do not bend to these forces, you disrupt the game. Suddenly, their weapons no longer work on you. If they withhold their approval, you remain steady. If they spread their judgment, you remain calm. If they shower you with admiration, you do not lose yourself in it. This balance unnerves people because it means you belong to yourself. And in a world where most are enslaved by the perceptions of others, belonging to yourself is a radical act. Detachment does not mean you become cold or indifferent. It does not mean you stop caring about others or dismiss every voice around you. Rather, it means you learn to separate your sense of self from the ever-changing tides of external validation. You can listen, you can observe, you can even appreciate feedback, but you no longer let it define who you are. You recognize that people will always have something to say. Some will praise you one day and despise you the next. Some will project their insecurities onto you, blaming you for things that exist only in their minds. To be swayed by such instability is to hand over your peace of mind. A strong mind refuses to do that. The moment you free yourself from opinions, you create an aura that unsettles people. They cannot figure out how to control you, and that frightens them. They may even label you as arrogant, distant, or difficult. But what they are truly seeing is someone who no longer depends on their approval to feel whole. And while that may disturb them, it secretly inspires them too, because deep down, every person longs to be free from the burden of constant judgment. Detachment from opinions also brings clarity. When you are no longer bending yourself to please others, you can finally hear your own voice. You begin to act in alignment with your truth, not in reaction to external noise. Decisions become clearer because you are not asking, what will they think? But rather, what is right? What is true to me? This clarity is magnetic. People respect it even if they do not understand it because it is rare. Most are tangled in endless doubt, afraid of stepping out of line, while you move with a quiet confidence that cannot be borrowed from anyone else. It is important to understand that this kind of detachment is not built overnight. It is the product of practice, of consciously noticing when you are being swayed by opinions and choosing to return to your center. Each time you resist the urge to chase validation, your mind grows stronger. Each time you endure criticism without collapsing, your roots grow deeper. Slowly you reach a point where your sense of self is no longer fragile. It is no longer at the mercy of shifting winds. You become like a tree, standing tall regardless of the storm, because your roots go far beneath the surface. And here lies the paradox. The less you care about opinions, the more people's opinions of you rise. They may fear you because they cannot control you, but they also respect you because you represent something they crave, the ability to live free. You become someone who does not ask for permission to exist. Your worth is not on trial in the court of public opinion. It is anchored within, unshakable, untouchable. This is why detachment from opinions is not just a skill, but a form of power. It makes you resilient to manipulation, immune to gossip, and free from the exhausting cycle of seeking approval. It allows you to walk your own path, even if the world misunderstands you. And in doing so, you create a life that belongs entirely to you. People may fear that freedom, or they may admire it, but they will always notice it. For nothing is more unsettling and nothing more inspiring than a person who lives beyond the reach of other people's judgments. A powerful mind is not proven in moments of ease, but in moments of chaos. When the world trembles, when uncertainty rises, when everything around you spins in confusion, the strongest mind does not move with the storm. It becomes the still point within it. Calm in chaos is one of the most unsettling qualities a human being can display. People expect panic, they expect anger, they expect reaction. But when they meet someone who remains composed while everything else collapses, it unsettles them because it breaks the pattern of ordinary human behavior. Most people live like mirrors of the environment around them. If the room is tense, they become tense. If others are fearful, they too feel fear. If circumstances grow uncertain, their peace vanishes. Their state of mind is dictated by external events, and so they have no true control over themselves. But a strong mind has learned something different. It has learned that chaos is inevitable and that peace must not depend on circumstances. Instead, peace becomes a discipline, a choice, a state of being that you carry regardless of what the outside world presents. When you are calm in chaos, you project a quiet kind of authority. Others may not understand it, but they feel it. While they are drowning in panic, you remain afloat. While they are consumed by drama, you remain still. This stillness is not weakness, it is strength at its highest level. Anyone can appear calm when things are going well, but very few can hold that same composure when the ground shakes beneath their feet. It is in those moments that the depth of your mind is revealed. Think of water. On the surface, the waves crash, foam and rage when the storm comes. But deep below, the ocean remains still, undisturbed, untouched. A strong mind learns to live in that depth. Life may shake the surface, but it does not shake your center. This is why people who carry calmness are often misunderstood. Others may see them as indifferent, emotionless, or detached, but in reality, their calm is born from mastery. They have chosen not to let chaos dictate their state of being. This quality unsettles people because it exposes their dependence on noise and drama. Most are addicted to chaos. They feed off it. They define themselves through it. They thrive in gossip, arguments, endless problems. So, when they encounter someone who refuses to be consumed by such things, it feels unnatural to them. They may even try to provoke you, just to see if they can pull you into the storm. And when you do not bite, when you remain still while they lose themselves, it scares them. They realize you are not like the rest. You belong to yourself. Calm in chaos is also a form of clarity. Panic clouds the mind. Fear distorts vision. Anger blinds judgment. But when you are calm, you see clearly. You can make decisions with precision because you are not consumed by reaction. And in times of chaos, clarity is more powerful than force. The one who sees clearly can navigate storms while others drown in confusion. This is why people begin to turn to those with calmness when the world falls apart. Even if they don't admit it, they feel drawn to the stability, because in your presence, their own chaos begins to soften. But calmness in chaos does not come naturally. It is trained. It is built in the moments when you choose to pause instead of react, when you choose silence over argument, when you choose stillness over argument, when you choose stillness over impulse. Each time you resist being pulled into chaos, you strengthen your foundation. And over time, you realize that external storms lose their grip on you. They may rage louder, but they no longer have the power to shake you. Your peace becomes independent, untouchable. The irony is that many mistake calmness for passivity, when in truth, it is the opposite. Calmness requires enormous strength. It takes far more power to remain still in the storm than to be swept away by it. Anyone can panic. Anyone can lash out. But to remain unmoved, to stand in silence when provoked, to breathe deeply when surrounded by fear, that requires mastery of the self. And mastery of the self is the greatest strength a human being can achieve. When you embody calm in chaos, you communicate something wordless but powerful, that you cannot be controlled. No situation, no person, no storm can dictate your mind. You are beyond reach. And this is what unsettles others. They realize you cannot be bent by the same forces that bend them. You are untouchable in ways they cannot explain. Some will resent it because your composure reminds them of their own instability. Others will admire it because they recognize in you the strength they wish to cultivate. But either way, they will not forget it. To build a mind so strong that it remains calm in chaos is to live with a secret weapon. Life will never stop sending storms, but those storms no longer dictate your peace. Instead, they become the background against which your strength shines. And when others witness that kind of composure, they are forced to face a truth. While they are tossed around by every wave, you have become the depth of the ocean itself, silent, steady, unshaken. And nothing is more intimidating or more inspiring than that. Clarity is one of the rarest forms of power. In a world where confusion reigns, where people are lost in noise, distractions, and endless illusions, the one who sees clearly is the one who holds true strength. When your mind cuts through the fog of lies and illusions, you become someone who cannot be deceived, someone who cannot be manipulated. This clarity does not just serve you, it unsettles those who benefit from confusion, those who thrive when others are lost. They fear the mind that sees too much, because clarity is a weapon that cannot be dulled once it has been sharpened. Most people do not actually live with clarity. They live with borrowed beliefs, second-hand truths, and unquestioned assumptions. They accept what they are told without examining it, following paths that were never truly their own. They let culture, society, or peers dictate their values, their dreams, even their definitions of success. They live in illusions and rarely question whether the life they are chasing is truly theirs. But a strong mind asks questions that unsettle the comfortable. It pierces through appearances. It seeks the essence, the truth beneath the surface. And when you begin to see clearly, you can no longer be controlled by illusions. This is why clarity is feared. Lies lose their grip on you. Manipulation loses its power. When others try to sway you with shallow temptations, with empty promises, with fear or shame, you see through them. You are not blinded by appearances, and so you cannot be led blindly. Those who operate in shadows are unsettled by such a person because their tactics no longer work. They hide in illusions because reality feels unbearable to them. And so a strong mind with clarity does not need to condemn. It simply stands firm, untangled by confusion, embodying truth quietly and powerfully. In the end, clarity is the foundation of freedom. Without it, you are a prisoner of lies, tossed about by illusions you cannot even see. With it, you walk through life with steady steps, guided not by noise, but by truth. And though some may fear you for it, and others may resent you for revealing what they do not wish to face, there will always be those who respect you deeply. For nothing commands respect more than a mind that sees clearly in a world of blindness. To build a mind so strong that clarity becomes your weapon is to walk through life untouchable. Illusions dissolve before you. Manipulation breaks against you. Lies cannot bind you. And when others see this, they are forced to recognize a strength that is both unsettling and awe-inspiring. The strength of a mind that sees reality for what it is and lives by it without fear. Self-mastery is the highest form of victory a human being can achieve. Conquering the world, amassing wealth, gaining influence, these are small compared to conquering your own mind. A person who has no control over their thoughts, their emotions, and their reactions is like a castle with its gates wide open. Anyone can walk in, take what they please, and leave them empty. But when you build a mind that is disciplined, a mind that responds instead of reacts, a mind that governs itself rather than being pulled in every direction, you become untouchable. This is the essence of self-mastery, and it is what makes others both respect and fear you. Most people live enslaved by impulses. A single word can ignite their anger. A minor inconvenience can collapse their patience. A moment of temptation can shatter their discipline. Their emotions control them, their thoughts scatter them, and their reactions expose them. They believe themselves free, but in truth, they are at the mercy of everything outside of them. And so they are predictable. Push the right buttons, and they will dance to your tune. But the person who has mastered themselves is different. You cannot provoke them into rage. You cannot tempt them into weakness. You cannot manipulate them with fear. They are not slaves to their inner storms, and that alone unsettles those who are. Self-mastery is not about suppressing emotions, but about transforming them. Anger is not destroyed. It is directed into action with precision. Fear is not denied. It is understood and used as fuel for courage. Desire is not ignored. It is refined into discipline. The strong mind does not run from its emotions, nor does it let them run wild. It places them under conscious command. This is what makes such a person powerful. They are not numb, but they are also not controlled. They are fully alive, yet fully centered. When others witness this, they are unsettled because it makes you unpredictable. Most people count on others to react in familiar ways. They use anger to provoke, flattery to influence, shame to control. But when these tactics fail on you, they are left disarmed. They cannot anticipate you because you no longer live as a puppet pulled by impulses. Your calmness in provocation, your silence in insult, your discipline in temptation, these things scare people because they reveal a strength they do not possess. Self-mastery also gives you presence. Yet when you walk into a room, people can sense it even without words. It is not about arrogance, but about the energy of someone who belongs entirely to themselves. You are not leaking energy through unnecessary reactions. You are not weighed down by inner conflict. You move with precision, you speak with intention, and you act with clarity. That kind of presence commands attention without demanding it. It makes others pause because they realize they are in front of someone who cannot be swayed easily. To cultivate self-mastery requires discipline. It means watching your thoughts, noticing how they wander, and training them to focus. It means observing your emotions without being enslaved by them. It means pausing before you react, creating a space between impulse and action. At first, this feels impossible. You will fail, you will lose control, you will stumble. But every time you return to discipline, every time you resist being dragged by impulse, your mind grows stronger. Slowly, you build a fortress within, a place where no chaos can reach. The fruit of this work is freedom. Imagine being insulted and feeling no sting, because you know words cannot define you. Imagine facing fear, but still moving forward, because you know fear has no true power. Imagine being tempted and yet staying true to your path, because discipline anchors you. This is not fantasy. It is the reality of self-mastery. And when others see it, they feel both admiration and unease. A clear mind is like a mirror. It reflects reality as it is, not as others want it to be. Clarity also brings a strange kind of authority. When others are confused and uncertain, your vision stands out. People feel drawn to it because deep down they crave direction. And yet, that very clarity also intimidates because it reveals truths that others are not ready to face. Most people are comfortable living in denial. They would rather hold on to comforting lies than confront painful realities. When you embody clarity, your presence alone challenges their illusions. You do not even need to speak. The way you see, the way you act, makes them question what they have been running from. The process of building clarity is not easy. It requires stripping away the unnecessary questioning what you've been told and daring to see without distortion. It requires sitting in silence, examining your own thoughts, and confronting uncomfortable truths. A mind that is constantly distracted, overstimulated, and consumed by noise cannot be clear. It is like muddy water, everything stirred, nothing visible. But when you allow stillness, when you discipline yourself to focus, the mud settles and the water clears. You begin to see what was always there but hidden. This inner clarity becomes your greatest weapon in navigating life. And what makes clarity so powerful is not just the ability to see through lies in others, but to see through lies in yourself. The strongest minds are not only unmanipulated by the outside world, they are unmanipulated by their own excuses, fears, and self-deception. To look at yourself honestly, without denial, without running away, is perhaps the hardest form of clarity to achieve. But once you do, you become unstoppable. You know your weaknesses and therefore are not enslaved by them. You know your fears and therefore are not ruled by them. You know your illusions and therefore can rise beyond them. People fear such clarity because it makes you unpredictable. If you cannot be lied to, if you cannot be manipulated by fear, if you cannot be swayed by flattery, then what can they do to control you? They realize they have no power over you. And in that realization, they feel small, they feel exposed, they feel unarmed in front of you, because everything they use to control others, deception, distraction, temptation, fails against you. That is why a clear mind can scare people without saying a word. But clarity is not cold. It is not harsh. True clarity brings compassion, because you begin to see not only the illusions in others, but also the suffering behind those illusions. You realize people cling to lies not because they are evil, but because they are afraid. Admiration, because they wish they could achieve the same. Unease, because your strength exposes their lack of control. This is why self-mastery can scare people. It shows them a level of freedom they do not yet know how to reach. It shows them that the chains they live under are not inevitable, but self-imposed. And rather than face that truth, many will project onto you, calling you cold, emotionless, distant. But what they are really saying is that they cannot comprehend a person who is not ruled by the same chaos that rules them. Self-mastery is not about superiority. It is not about being above others, but about being whole within yourself. It allows you to move through the world with grace, not because the world is easy, but because you are steady. You no longer waste energy fighting yourself, so you have more energy to face life. And that is why the strongest people are often the calmest, the most disciplined, the most silent. They have already fought the greatest battle and won. To master yourself is to build a power that no one can take from you. Money can be lost, status can fade, influence can vanish. But the mastery of your own mind remains yours. It is the ultimate weapon, the ultimate shield, the ultimate freedom. And when people encounter it, they feel something that shakes them, not because you intend to intimidate, but because your presence reveals what they lack. In that moment, they realize, here is someone different, someone unshakable, someone whose strength does not come from the outside, but from the core of their being. That is a kind of power that both inspires and terrifies at the same time. Most people live their lives waiting to be understood, seeking recognition, hoping someone will finally validate who they are. But the truth is, you do not need to be understood by anyone to live a meaningful life. If you spend your energy trying to explain yourself, you waste the very power that should be building your path. People will misunderstand you, twist your intentions, and project their own fears onto your actions. That is inevitable. The person of depth, the one who walks their own path, is always misread by the shallow crowd. What matters is not whether they understand you, but whether you understand yourself. When you live authentically, many will not be able to grasp your choices. They will call you selfish when you prioritize your growth. They will call you arrogant when you choose silence over unnecessary explanations. They will call you strange when you break free from the patterns that keep them comfortable. But their labels do not define you. They are simply reflections of their limited perspective. And the more you grow, the less they will recognize you. That is not a weakness. It is a sign of transformation. Growth always makes you unrecognizable to those who remain where they are. The need to be understood is a subtle form of dependence. It means your peace still relies on the approval of others. It means your path is still tied to their acceptance. But freedom begins when you realize that your journey is yours alone and not everyone is meant to walk it with you. Some people will misunderstand and leave. Let them. Others will criticize and mock. Let them. Because the truth is, their misunderstanding does not stop your growth unless you let it. The tree does not stop growing because the passerby cannot identify its kind. The river does not stop flowing because someone doubts its direction. And you must not stop because others cannot see the vision that drives you. In fact, the greatest figures in history were deeply misunderstood in their time. Innovators, thinkers, creators. They were called mad, foolish, or dangerous. But their refusal to shrink themselves for the comfort of others is what allowed them to change the world. Imagine if they had paused to explain themselves to every critic. Imagine if they had spent their lives trying to be accepted by the crowd. Their legacy would not exist. And the same principle applies to you. Your life's meaning cannot be found in validation, but in authenticity. Being misunderstood is not a curse. It is proof that you are not living according to the script others expect. It means you are writing your own story and not simply repeating the one handed down to you. The courage to be misunderstood is the courage to live truly. And with that courage comes peace. Because once you no longer need others to see you clearly, their opinions lose their chains around your mind. You begin to act, not from fear of judgment, but from clarity of purpose. There is a quiet power in not explaining yourself. In silence, people are left to wonder. Some will imagine the worst, others will project their envy, but all will know that you are not easily swayed. Explanations invite arguments, but silence commands respect. When you stop chasing understanding, you conserve energy. That energy becomes discipline, focus, and growth. It becomes the foundation of your inner strength. And those who truly matter, the rare few who resonate with your authenticity, will not need endless explanations to recognize your essence. They will simply see it. Understand this. Most people do not even understand themselves. They do not know why they act the way they do, why they cling to habits that harm them, why they sabotage their own peace. How then can they possibly understand you, especially if you have chosen a path of self-mastery and discipline? Their lack of understanding is not a reflection of your confusion, but of theirs. So stop demanding clarity from those who cannot even see within their own hearts. The one who walks in self-awareness carries a different kind of confidence. It is not loud, it is not boastful, but it radiates. People sense it, even when they cannot define it. That is why they question you, why they doubt you, why they misunderstand you. Because you remind them of a freedom they have not yet claimed. You stand as proof that life does not need to be lived in chains, and that unsettles them. But your task is not to convince them, it is to keep walking. In time, your results will speak. Your discipline will manifest in strength. Your silence will become wisdom. Your focus will yield growth. And those who once misunderstood you will be forced to acknowledge the power of your path. Some will admire you, others will envy you. But by then, it will not matter. Because you will have built a life rooted not in the shaky soil of their opinions, but in the solid ground of your own truth. To live without the need to be understood is to live free. It means you belong to yourself completely. It means your energy is not wasted in convincing, but invested in becoming. And when you reach that state, when you finally understand that being misunderstood is not a burden but a shield, you discover a strength that is untouchable. The world cannot cage a person who no longer seeks permission to exist. And that is the essence of power. Not to be understood by others, but to be deeply understood by yourself. Most people live with a constant companion. Fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of being judged, fear of not being enough. It is stitched into their choices, woven into their daily lives, hidden behind their smiles. They make decisions not out of clarity, but out of avoidance. They avoid risk. They avoid truth. They avoid the unknown. Fear dictates who they are and who they are not. And because of this, they live in chains they cannot see. But imagine a mind that has broken free from this prison. A mind that no longer trembles at the thought of failure, rejection, or ridicule. You build a mind that transcends fear. You no longer shrink yourself for comfort. You no longer hesitate at opportunity. You no longer let other people's shadows define the shape of your light. You walk freely, and in that freedom, you become untouchable. What unsettles people most is not your strength, but your fearlessness, because fear is the language they know best. It is what keeps them obedient, what makes them predictable, what ties them to the herd. When you step outside of it, you break the code that controls them. They do not know how to respond to someone who is not bound by the same limits. And that is why they feel uneasy in your presence. It is not arrogance. It is not hostility. It is simply that you remind them of what they have not yet dared to become. Fear is the oldest tool of control. It governs societies, relationships, and minds. But when you stop being governed by it, you stand outside the walls where most people remain trapped. You no longer chase safety at the expense of growth. You no longer cling to approval as if your existence depends on it. You no longer tremble when life pushes you into the unknown. Instead, you welcome it because you know that fear is only the threshold to expansion. Every great transformation lies on the other side of what you fear most. To transcend fear does not mean you never feel it. Fear will always whisper. It will always remind you of risk, of pain, of the unknown. But the difference is in how you respond. The weak mind believes the whisper and obeys it. The strong mind hears it, acknowledges it, but walks forward anyway. That is the essence of courage, not the absence of fear, but the refusal to bow before it. And once you have lived long enough in that space, fear begins to lose its grip. It becomes background noise, not a command. What truly scares people about a fearless mind is its unpredictability. You cannot manipulate someone who is not afraid of being alone, of being criticized, of being misunderstood. You cannot trap someone who no longer seeks safety in the approval of others. You cannot control someone who has already accepted the possibility of loss. They walk differently, they act differently, they decide differently, and in a world built on fear, that kind of freedom is unsettling. It is power in its purest form. Think of the way water flows. It cannot be cut, it cannot be grasped, it cannot be held back for long. That is what a fearless mind resembles. It does not cling, it does not resist, it does not freeze itself in hesitation. It simply moves, always forward, always adapting. And those who stand rigid, held captive by fear, do not know what to do when faced with such movement. They watch in awe or in envy, but they cannot ignore it. The truth is, once you overcome fear, you stop living a half-life. You stop bargaining with your potential. You stop diluting your power to fit into places you have outgrown. Fearless living means you choose truth over comfort, growth over safety, freedom over approval. And when people see this in you, they cannot help but feel shaken. Because deep down, they know they have the same capacity. They know they too could walk that path, but they have not yet chosen it. And your example confronts them with that reality. The strong mind is not loud. It does not need to boast of its fearlessness. It simply radiates an energy that others can feel. In your silence, they sense strength. In your calmness, they sense power. In your decisiveness, they sense certainty. And while some will be drawn to it, others will retreat because it forces them to face their own chains. But this is not your burden to carry. Your task is not to comfort others in their fears, but to continue rising above your own. To live beyond fear is to live in truth. It is to finally meet life as it is, without the distortions of your anxious mind. It is to see clearly that no failure is final. No judgment is permanent, and no loss can destroy the core of who you are. It is to know that every moment is survivable, that every challenge is a doorway, that every fear is an illusion meant to be crossed. And when you live this way, you embody a strength that words cannot capture. Others will call it intimidating. They will say you are hard to read, difficult to control, impossible to shake, and they will be right. Because you have built a mind that no longer bows to fear, and in that freedom, you have become everything they secretly long to be. You have become proof that fear is not the master, but the test. And in passing it, you reveal the kind of power that does not need to be explained, because it is undeniable. Building a mind so strong it scares people is not about intimidation, but liberation. It is about becoming so centered, so disciplined, so free from illusions that nothing outside of you can shake the foundation within. Such a mind carries a quiet authority, not because it demands respect, but because it cannot be ignored. It sees through lies, detaches from validation, moves calmly in chaos, and acts with precision. It does not chase approval, nor does it bow to fear. It is rooted in clarity, sharpened by self-mastery, and empowered by silence. This kind of mind does not need to shout. Its presence alone commands attention. Others may misunderstand you, criticize you, or even fear you, but that is the price of living authentically. For while they cling to comfort, you will have chosen growth. While they follow illusions, you will have chosen truth. And while they remain bound by fear, you will have stepped beyond it. The world is not changed by those who seek to be understood, but by those who choose to understand themselves. So build a mind that cannot be broken, a mind that cannot be controlled, a mind that cannot be bent by the storms of life. Build a mind so strong that it unsettles those still living in chains, because it reminds them of the freedom they too could claim. And when you reach that state, you will not just live, you will embody a power that is undeniable, unshakable, and eternal.